Howdy and welcome to the Confidence Through Health podcast. I'm Jerry Snyder. As an elite level athlete, owner of All In Health and Wellness, and author of the book Confidence Through Health, my goal is to help you achieve your goals and dreams using health as the conduit to get there. So I want to take a minute to thank our sponsor for this episode, Luna Juice Bar. If you are in the Waco area, stop by Luna Juice Bar or check out their food truck at the Magnolia Silos for your healthy food, your juice, your smoothies, everything that you need to get your body heading in the right direction from a nutrition standpoint. Check out Luna Juice Bar. The link is on my website, confidencethroughhealth.com, or you can go to lunajuicebar.com to look at the menu and order online as well. So thank you to our sponsor, Luna Juice Bar. Howdy and welcome back to the Confidence Through Health podcast. This is your host, Jerry Snyder. This episode, I wanted to talk about decision making, specifically when it comes to your health, but how it bleeds into everything that you do in your life. And a big piece of where this is coming from today is that I had an experience. As many of you know, if you've listened to the podcast for a while, or if you know me, you know that I coach high school athletes. I coach for a school on a semi-volunteer basis. I get a small stipend, but it's mostly volunteer work. And then I coach privately for athletes of all sports. And so one of my athletes had COVID over the summer and has struggled recovering. And it's been tough making decisions about what to do because of the struggle of making that, the recovery from it. I'm sure you've all heard of long haul COVID. And unfortunately, this athlete suffers from that, being that we're 2+ months away from when he first had symptoms, and he's still unable to truly exercise at a level that he was before. And so the decision making that goes into, when do I take the next step? When do I pull back? When do I decide to do all those things? And knowing that there's a potential for another setback or failure or whatever you want to call it. And so he had a setback. And one of the things is that he said, because I had warned him, and get in not warning so much, but just gave him advice on, here's some things that you have to be wary of and looking for, and here's the potential things that could happen. And he had a setback, and his reply to me was, now's the time you can say, I told you so. And I was like, now is not the time to say, I told you so. That's not a part of the decision-making process unless you disregarded my advice completely. And that's what I told him. And he said, no, I didn't disregard your advice. You told me that could happen, and I decided to do that anyway. And I said, then fine. That's fine. And that's one of the things that's where it comes down to, is what I want to talk about today when it comes to your health, is when you make that decision to not exercise today or for a month or for the rest of your life. When you make that decision to eat donuts every morning because they're in the break room at work, or when you decide to stop at the fast food restaurant every night as opposed to eating at home, when you decide to tell yourself that it's more expensive to eat healthy, and so therefore you eat inexpensively, which it actually is false. But when you eat inexpensively because you've told yourself a narrative that it's more expensive to eat healthy. So it's understanding that when you make those decisions, there's positive and negative outcomes that could potentially come from everything. There's negative outcomes from every decision that are potential outcomes. It's not saying that that's going to happen, but it's a potential outcome, and you have to know that ahead of time. And so that's why when it says in the Bible, and I'm going to paraphrase this, when it says that when you make a decision, seek many counselors. So you're seeking many different people that have either been through that situation or you want their advice because they have been through a lot of different situations. And so you're asking people like, what do you think? I'm in this spot and I want to make this decision. Do you think that's a good or bad decision? They're not going to make the decision for you. If they're making the decision for you, that's a problem. It's your decision. So, and you can peg this with like the vaccine. This is huge right now with everybody telling everybody else what they're supposed to do with it. You need to make the decision when it comes to your health, when it comes to anything that you do. It's your decision. You want to quit your job? It's your decision. There's potential positives and negatives to that. If you have a better job to go to, that's a positive. A negative could be, well, maybe that new job has longer hours. Maybe that new job requires you to work on the weekend every month, once a month, and you're not used to working on the weekends. And so you're pulling away from family time. So there's positives and negatives to every decision. And when it comes to your health, if you don't understand the negatives that could come, then it's going to be hard for you to maintain a healthy life. It's very easy to get stuck. And I say stuck because that's where that a lot of the food manufacturers and pharmaceutical companies, they want you stuck, not able to make a decision. They want you stuck and quote unquote addicted to their process of doing things. And it's not, I'm not talking about conspiracy theory. I'm talking about they will purposefully do that because they want you to be a lifetime customer. If there's a pharmaceutical company out there that has blood pressure medicine, they want you to be on that for the rest of your life because otherwise they're not making money. So although you can get rid of high blood pressure almost in every situation, most of the people in our country and in the Western world and that have high blood pressure, by far, most can reduce it and get off blood pressure medicine just from making changes in their diet and exercise. But the convenience of taking the pill to lower it, and then you don't have to. And so there's the positives and negatives. The positive is, I can just take a pill and it's easy. And then I can go on and do other things. And I save that time that I would need to spend exercising and I can do other things. Or I save that money that it's supposed to be more expensive, quote unquote, to eat healthy. And I can save that money to do something else. The negative is if you're on blood pressure medicine for the rest of your life, it is damaging organs in your body. It is damaging other parts of your body because all medicine has toxicity to it that your body is not supposed to have in it. All medicine has toxicity. Yes, it has things that are supposed to help you. Don't hear me wrong that you're never supposed to take medicine again. That's not what I'm saying. But there's certain medications, in fact, I would say all medications that you're not supposed to be on for the rest of your life unless you have a very specific, not chronic diseases, but diseases that are rare and they're in the uncurable range of things where it's not curable, but if you treat it with this medication, you can live a more normal life. And so those places you have to, and there's nothing else you can do. High blood pressure does not fall into that category. High blood pressure, you can exercise and you can eat better and you can lower your blood pressure. Heart disease, you can exercise and eat better and lower your blood pressure. Cancer, you can eat right and exercise and drastically lower your chances of having cancer. Lung cancer, if you're a smoker, stop smoking. You'll drop your chances drastically after the first few years of not smoking. So there's things that you can do. There's other diseases hereditary diseases that you're born with that it's just, that you've got to be like type 1 diabetes right now to this point, you have to be on insulin to be able to maintain a healthy life. Okay. So there's things where that's necessary, but there's a positive and negative to every decision that you make. And if you make those decisions with your health without knowing So I'm going to apologize. I had to pause there. My puppy, which you can see right there, was scratching at the door. So if you heard some background noise, that was her scratching at the door. But to get back to it, every decision you make with your health has positives and negatives. And if you don't understand the negatives that could come from the decisions you're making with the food that you're putting in your mouth or the exercise that you're doing or not doing, it makes it very hard to come out the other side 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and have a healthy lifestyle, have a healthy body, and know anything. You're going to be confused as anything about how to be healthy and what it takes. So start today at understanding, hey, if I eat this, I'm going to have this reaction or that reaction. One of my clients that I'm helping with nutrition coaching, he texted me yesterday and he said, and he's been gluten-free for a long time because he was told by somebody that he needed to be gluten-free and it's the best thing to do. And while I'll agree with that for most people, I said, well, let's test things out and see if that's truly happening to you or if that's maybe not as big an issue for you. And so you don't have to be as uber sensitive to what you eat, where you eat, and you can have a little more freedom in that. So I said, we're going to add a little bit of gluten in just this week and see how your body reacts. And he had immediate reactions in his bowel movement. And he said, interesting. And I said, okay, there we go. So it's causing a reaction. It wasn't necessarily a big negative reaction, but it's causing a reaction. So here's what it tells me, and it can tell him as he's going into the future with his life. It wasn't so bad of a negative reaction that he can never have gluten again. Okay. He's allowed to have gluten every now and then, whenever like the situation calls for it, where he's out with a group or he has no control over the menu or what. He doesn't have to be uber sensitive and be the guy that sticks out of the whole crowd going, I can't eat that. I've got to do something else. He can have it knowing that here's going to be the side effect of eating gluten. Okay. He's going to have a change in his bowel movements for a day. Now, problem is, if he was to go back to eating gluten all the time, he would not notice that change in his bowel movement as much, and it would actually cause problems and start to backfire on him. But what he now knows is that he can have gluten every now and then, and it's not going to cause a massive issue, and it's not going to cause too many productivity issues. But you don't know that if you don't pull back the reins and say, I'm going to go off of this for a little bit and then come back to it and see how my body reacts. It's called elimination diet in that way. He was working on an elimination diet before he came to me, trying to eliminate everything that he had heard was bad. And I'm like, well, let's try these things out because not everything is bad for everybody. There are a few things that are bad for everybody. But there's a lot of things out there that you'll hear from people that don't necessarily understand nutrition properly and don't understand how the human body works properly. That'll tell you, you can't have this, you can't have that, you can't have this, you can't have that, you can't have this, you can't have that. And all these things that you have to knock off the list. And then that's where it becomes, I can't eat healthy for cheap because it's just too hard to figure it all out. And so you throw it out the window. And then what happens? You have negative consequences to eating poor nutritional food. So what you want to do is understand that if you eat fried foods, here are the negatives. It's going to drive your cholesterol. It's going to drive heart disease. It's going to drive cancer. It's going to drive blood pressure. It's going to drive chronic diseases. Okay. It's going to drive all those things. If you're eating a high white flour diet, guess what? White flour is not a natural substance. Flour is a natural substance. White flour is not natural. They bleach it. And it's not called bleached. It's called enriched. So if it's enriched flour, you are consuming bleach in your food. That's not good for your body. I think we all know that bleach is not good to be consumed. But when you do it in your food and you call it something else, you don't necessarily know that if you're not truly paying attention and understanding where things are being produced, where things are coming from. So yes, it takes some education. But once you learn the basics of how it works in your body, it's very easy to maintain that. It'll take you 3 months or 6 months to learn your body, to learn how all these things interact in your body and truly fine tune and be like dialed into this is how it works. And then it's all about the key word that the doctor will tell you is moderation. And unfortunately, most of us don't have a clue what moderation means when it comes to the way the doctor refers to it with our diet. And I would challenge most doctors can't explain it properly. Because moderation means you need to know how long that item is going to affect your body. Gluten, for some people, stays in their system and affects their body for up to 30 days. So if you have a cheat day every 7 days and have that pizza with high gluten content, but then you're eating your salads and you're eating your fruit, you're eating your vegetables all the other days, and you're staying away from sugar and all that. But then on that, every Saturday or every Sunday, you're sitting down and you're having your chips and your salsa and your pizza and all this stuff at the football party or whatever it is that you're going to, and your beer and all that. And that's the only day you do it, but that's your cheat day for the week. If you're doing that every 7 days and gluten is affecting you for 30 days, once it's into your system, you're never going to beat the cycle. And you might say, yeah, but that's just one day. That's just one meal. That shouldn't matter. Well, it shouldn't matter, but it does for some people. And that's how you can get people that get frustrated and they go to the doctor. And I know you've heard this. It may be you. I hear it a lot. I'm eating healthy. I'm exercising. I'm doing the right things. And I can't lose the weight. And I can't get off the medication. And I can't because I don't know what. And I'm trying as hard as I can, but I don't know what to do because it's not working. Well, it's not working because there's triggers in your body that are causing negative consequences on a continual basis that are longer term than you know that they are. And so if you keep introducing that trigger during that time frame before you extinguish the time frame that it actually is affecting your body, you're never going to get in front of the cycle. You're never going to get in front. And so, yeah, you do need to cut back on everything that is not good nutritionally for a certain amount of time. Not cold turkey. Don't do it all at once because then your body will revolt and you'll bounce back and you'll be heavier than you were before. And then you're going to be frustrated with diets and no diets work and it's never going to work for me and all of these things. And that's not true. It'll work for you. It'll do the right things for you. But you just have to know the consequences and the negatives and the positives from every outcome. So that when you decide to go back to my athlete, like when he decided, I'm going to go ahead and still do this, even though you told me I might not be ready. And even though you told me that, in your opinion, I may have a setback, I'm going to go ahead and do this still. Even though you know that gluten affects your body for 30 days. And if it's been 14 days since you've had gluten, you're going to go out there and have that pizza, or you're going to go out there and have that, whatever it is that has gluten in it, the soft taco shells, whatever it is that you like, the wheat bread, whatever it is that you're like, I know that has gluten. It's okay. It's been 14 days. I know I've got another 16 days before I'm out of this, but I'm going to restart the clock today and make it another 30 days out. And so I'm going to have negative effects, and those are going to build and continue to be there for now 30 days instead of just 16 days. As long as you know that and you're aware of that and you're making that decision, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Go ahead and do it. The problem is most people don't have a clue. Most people don't know the things that are making them sick on an individual basis. Sure, you know that sugar is not good for you in high quantities. You know that like You know all these things that are not good for you in high quantities. But you don't realize how long they affect you. You don't realize how big of a deal it is for them to be exposed in your body. And you can't tell the effect because you're past the point of being able to tell the effect of the positive and negative swings in your body. To go back to my client that had not had gluten for a long time, had gluten. He goes, I immediately felt the effect. Most people can't do that because they're not in tune with their body, because they're past the point of being able to be in tune. And so they're so far over the edge that no matter what they eat, they don't feel good, truly good. So they'll never know the swing. They'll never know, oh, that made me feel bad, because they always feel bad. If you have chronic disease, I will challenge you by saying, if you have chronic disease, you probably always feel bad. And those things that you eat that all of a sudden give you massive headaches, or all of a sudden give you bloating, or all of a sudden you're having big, gut digestion problems and issues and indigestion and heartburn and all of these things. Or if you're type 2 diabetic, the things that that you eat that spike your sugar levels. All those things are causing really bad effects in your body that you don't even recognize or feel until they get way too far. So you're not feeling it at first. It's not until the very tip of the iceberg that you're feeling it. And so you've got this huge piece. We all seen those icebergs, right? You've got this huge piece of the iceberg underneath the surface, and you only feel it when it comes above. That's why it's so hard for most people to go on a quote unquote diet and be able to truly feel better for long term and sustain it, because they're only addressing the top of the iceberg. They're not addressing the bottom of the iceberg. And you have to address the whole thing. And to be able to do that, you have to know how to make decisions, and you have to know the negatives and the positives that could potentially happen. Not to say that they will, but they could potentially happen. And my daughter was asking me about driving when I took her to school today. She said, Dad, there's a lot of stuff you have to do. She's 11, about to be 12. There's a lot of stuff you have to do when you're driving. I said, yeah, you have a lot of things you have to pay attention to. A lot of things. She was like, wow, that can be scary. I said, well, I mean, it can be. When you get used to it, you're okay with it and you become comfortable with it. And some of us become too comfortable, and then we cause a wreck, or we get into a wreck, or and it's because we're almost too comfortable and we forget that these things can happen. We forget that you can have a massive car wreck in a split second, and some of these things happen and we just like, oh, but I've been doing it for so long and I've never had a problem. And you get numb to that potential negative that could still be out there. And I'm not saying don't ever drive a car. I'm not trying to scare you from that. I'm saying when you get in, you have to do things like you're at the very beginning. And when you're eating, you have to do things like at the very beginning, and you have to do them understanding that there's negative consequences. Some of those negative consequences are 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. But they're there. 40 years down the road, they're there. If you have constipation, chronic constipation, meaning that you're constipated 4 days a week for long periods of time, a couple months at a time, you're constipated for 4 days a week. That is a precursor to several different mental health issues later on in life: dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, all those things. That's a precursor. That's a sign that you're heading that direction. And that sign shows up 40 years in advance of when those diseases actually show up. And when you actually go into the doctor and they say, hey, that's a sign of dementia, that you've got that. But they're tracing it back to 40 years before those first signs that have been identified as that disease those people, for the most part, have dealt with chronic constipation. Part of that issue is because your body and the way your gut's working and your digestive system's working, and if you don't address it at that point 40 years prior, then it's going to continue to build and continue to build and continue to be an issue long over time. And it's just going to get worse and worse. And that compacting and fermentation of bowel, of waste products in your bowel is causing disruption in your body. And it's causing disruption in production of neurotransmitters. And so all that is then causing your brain to disrupt over time. And all that happens is you hit the tipping point and boom, now you've got chronic disease. And it's hard to go backwards over that tipping point. You know, if you're at the top of a mountain, once you fall down the side of the cliff, it's really hard to get back on top. You know, it's hard to go backwards and get back on top. It's easy to stay up there. It's easy to backtrack down. But if you fall off the cliff, if you fall, not walk down, but if you fall off the cliff, you're probably going to have broken bones. You're going to have issues, you know, from a physical standpoint. It's going to make it really hard to go right back. The key is don't get to the top of the cliff and fall off. Don't get to the top of the iceberg. Don't get to the tipping point and fall over it. And so when you see those negative consequences starting to show up, you have to address the decisions you're making. You have to address the things that are going in your body. You have to address the amount of exercise you're doing. Because if you don't, those little things are just going to compound over time. And all of a sudden, you're going to wake up one day and you've got high blood pressure, you've got heart disease, and you're on medication that the doctor is saying you're going to need to be on this the rest of your life, which is not true. If you address it with exercise and nutrition. But here's the key piece. It's a lot easier to start that process early and learn it and be able to maintain it and never get to the point where I am teetering on the edge and I've got to go back. You know, think about those roller coasters that get stuck at the top because the mechanism broke and it brought them all the way up to the top and they're teetering on the edge and it's a fast drop to the bottom. Okay. And so you're climbing up that chronic disease roller coaster. You're climbing up it slowly. It's click, 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 click. You're climbing up and you're about to the top where you're going to go down the edge. You're going to go down fast and you're going to go down and you're not going to be able to get backwards back up it. It's not possible. But if you get stuck along the way, you got to get out and you got to walk down the little stairs they've got, right? And that's difficult and that's hard. The lower you are when it gets stuck and stopped, the lower you are when you stop that roller coaster going up, the easier it is to walk back down. So if you stop the bad habits early on and you don't have chronic disease developed, it's easy to walk back down and change your life. If you're halfway up, 3/4 of the way up, almost at the top, you can still do it. It's just a little bit harder. If you've fallen over and you went ahead and went over the side, you can still change it. You can still change it. It's not too late. It just is more difficult and it's harder. And you have to live with those decisions. Now, here's a big piece of the whole decision-making thing. Don't beat yourself up. You made a decision. You made a decision that you thought was right for you in that moment. That moment's past. It's in the past. It's bygone. Bye-bye. It's back there somewhere. It happened a long time ago. You made the decision in the moment that you thought was best for you. Don't beat yourself up over it. You get to make a new decision today. You get to make a new decision right now to move forward with a healthy life, to move forward with a healthy eating plan, to move forward starting to exercise, to move forward to get off your medication. That is where you get the building blocks of confidence because you're going to say, I'm going to take control. I'm going to take charge. I'm going to take control and we're going to make a difference. It doesn't matter what your starting point is. Your starting point is based on the decisions you've made to get you to a certain point. Personally, before I started my business and started coaching people, which led to the podcast and led to books and led to all this, I let myself get out of control. And it might not sound like a lot to some people, but for me, from where I came from being a college athlete and a runner, to go from graduating college at 142, 144 pounds to 188, sitting behind a desk, doing something I didn't really enjoy, to coming back to what I know and love in helping people with their health and nutrition. And so I said, I've got to get back myself. And it was difficult. It wasn't easy. So I know that. And now I sit here in front of you at 142 pounds. And it's maintainable, and it's easily maintainable. Now that's a good body structure. That's a good weight for my body structure. That's a good weight for my size. Okay. Don't take that and say, I need to be 142 pounds. You need to be the right weight and body structure and body percentage. As I talked about in the previous episodes, body fat percentage, all of that stuff. Everybody's different in their size and their height and all of that stuff. Okay. So don't listen to that, but listen to the fact that it took me 2.5 years to get back. It took me 2.5 years to get back of eating right, of exercising, of doing it right and doing it at the proper setting, the proper format, the proper timing for everything. You cannot, if you've never run before in your life or you've taken years and years off, you're not going to run a marathon next week. I mean, you could try, but you might, I should say, you might be able to do it. But the negative consequence of that decision is you're going to put your body through a lot of pain. You're most likely going to get injured. You're going to be stiff and sore, and you're going to be all kinds of hate in life. But if you decide, I'm going to take that step and I'm going to have that goal and I'm going to run that marathon in 2 years, then you slowly hack away at it and you slowly build up and you slowly get there and you run that marathon or 5K or whatever event or whatever thing that you've got out there that you want to do and accomplish. If your goal is, I want to be comfortable on my trip so that I can fit into an airplane seat properly and fly for, across the ocean to Europe or to Asia or wherever. And I know I'm going to be in that plane for 8 to 10 hours or 12 hours, and I want to fly comfortably to get there. And so for me to do that, I know I need to lose weight and get to that point. All great things, all great decisions. Do it slowly and get there and be methodical about it. And when you make that decision, and you're going to have to make more decisions to get there, there's going to be more and more decisions along the way. It's not as simple as, I'm going to do this and it's done. You can ask it, well, really, anybody that's ever tried anything, it's not that simple, right? Entrepreneurs will tell you it's not that simple. I'm going to build this business and make X amount of money and be super famous with my product. It's not that simple, right? I'm a kid. I'm going to be an Olympian. Not that simple. You've got a lot of decisions along the way, making sure you know the positive and negatives of every decision as you go along, getting advice from others that's trusted advice from experts or people that have been through that situation before. That's a key piece of the process so that you're getting good information and input. Not necessarily that you have to listen to anybody 100% because everybody's situation is different, but you need to get the input so that you can make proper decisions, educated decisions, not necessarily based on education as in schooling, but based on education as in, who do I know who's been through this? Who do I know who's seen people go through this? And what's out there that's telling me what the pitfalls are? What's out there that's telling me, here's where the dangers are. Here's the negatives that could happen, and expect those to happen. They probably won't, but expect them to happen. So when they don't happen, you're going to feel better about yourself. If you know that that could happen, but you say, it's never going to happen to me, and it does happen to you, then guess what? It makes you feel horrible, and it makes you feel like it's always going to be happening to you, and you're never going to get ahead. And you can get ahead. It's just about the attitude when you're making the decisions. And that's how you get confidence. When you get confidence through those little bitty decisions that all go the right way, and all of a sudden you're still making a decision based on, I know that this negative could happen. I'm going to eat this fried chicken, and I know that this is going to cause me distress in my gut, and I might not sleep well. And if I don't sleep well because I've got distress in my gut, then I'm going to have a poor performance tomorrow when I do my presentation. And if I do a poor performance at my presentation, then I might not get the promotion, or I might not get the raise, or I might not get the passing grade. And then I'm going to be back to where I started, or I'm going to be failing the class. I've got to do extra work, or I'm going to have to explain to my boss why I put my name in the hat for promotion when I wasn't ready. I'm going to have makeup work to do. I'm going to have, damage control to do. Or I could eat positive, healthy food that's going to help my gut heal and help my gut be nutritious and my body be nutritious. And I'm going to sleep well, and I'm going to get sound sleep for 8 hours. And I'm going to wake up, and I'm going to be prepared, and I'm going to knock the presentation out of the park. And I'm going to get the promotion, or I'm going to get the A, or I'm going to get the raise. And then life is going to change because I'm going to be able to move on to the next step. Both. One's positive, one's negative. And it could happen. Anything in the middle of those could happen. Or, the other negative could be, I eat the fried chicken, I don't sleep well, I'm tired on my way to work, and I get in a wreck, and then I miss the presentation, and I get fired. And I get hurt in the wreck. You might go, dude, that's like super negative. Why are you thinking about all that? Because that's a potential that could happen. And if you're not prepared for those potentials on the negative side, then when they happen, it's going to make it very difficult for you to overcome them. Not impossible. It just makes it more difficult. So if you make the decisions understanding everything that could happen, you're going to feel better about yourself if the negatives do happen because you're prepared for it. You understand that it could happen. You understand that they're out there. But when the positives happen, you're going to feel even better because you were prepared for the negatives, and then you were surprised when they didn't happen, and you feel better. And that's what happens when you get those people that win awards, like they win Emmys or Oscars or, whatever it is. They win an award and they're like, I did not expect to win. And you're like, how'd you not expect to win? There's only 4 people that are, even nominated. You're one of the 4. Like you had some sort of inkling that you would win. But no, they went into it thinking the negatives, here's the negative, here, on the best side of things, the worst that could happen is I don't win. Okay. So I'm not expecting to win. And they're prepared for that. And so when they do win, the high is huge from winning. The endorphin high is huge from winning. So I know we went sort of all over the place on this, but it comes back to decision making. It's all about decision making. When it comes to your health, you are in control. Once you become an adult, once you're outside of your parents, and some of y'all is teens and maybe younger, unfortunately, are in control because of your situation at home. But once you're on your own, you are in control, and you cannot blame anybody else for the health situation that you're in, especially when it comes to chronic disease. If you're dealing with chronic disease, you put yourself there, and you can make the decisions to get yourself out of it. And it's just understanding how to make those decisions and, You need to do that by weighing all the positives and all the negatives and making sure that when you make that decision, you're making it because it's what you want to do and what you want to do to move forward, not just because you're not even thinking about the decision. You're just going down the road and stopping at the first fast food restaurant that smells good or that doesn't have a line so that you can get food fast. It's not healthy for you. You're not making a decision based on healthy food. You're basing it, and that's why they all stack their restaurants right one after the other. And you go, man, isn't that competition? Well, they know if they're all in a row and you're driving down the road, you're going to stop at the one that has the shortest line. And that's going to go from store to store. The first one's going to fill up, then the next one's going to fill up, then the next one's going to fill up, then the first one's going to become available again, then the next one's going to come available, then the fourth one's going to fill up, then it's going to be back and forth and back and forth. And you've got 20 minutes to make lunch or to get lunch. And your decision is not going to be based on what's the healthiest option I can make. Your decision is going to be based on how can I get food and get back to the office in 20 minutes. And unfortunately, that's the biggest productivity problem and issue that companies have. And if companies would figure that out and understand that, look, if I give my employees healthy food and give them the option to get healthy food and provide that for them here in house where they can get it and they don't have to go out and fight the fast food business, my productivity is going to increase by up to 30%. And when I ask business owners that, hey, if you could increase your productivity by 30%, every single one of them says, how do I do that? And when I tell them, you just become healthier. They're like, but that's so hard. And that's a decision. They've made the decision. The negative is they've made the decision that they're not going to fight that fight for people's health, for their employees' health. And so what happens is they've made the decision to deal with the negatives of the afternoon struggles and dips and the lack of productivity. So it all comes down to decision making. Make the decision to be positive with your health. Make the decision to eat better. Make the decision to exercise. And in the end, you're going to save money. So if it's financial basis, I promise you, every scenario that I've ever pulled for anybody, you save money eating healthy and exercising. You save money every time. Over the long period of time, you may not save money this week. Okay? Especially if you're coming off of a poor nutritional diet. You may not save money this week. You will save money in 3 months or 6 months. You will save money 100% over your lifetime. I guarantee you 100%. You will save money over your lifetime if you stop today and start being healthy with your food and your exercise. So make the decisions based on good knowledge, make the decision based on good input, and make the decisions knowing the negatives. Don't just focus on the positives. Don't just focus on, this is a great thing that could happen. Oh my gosh, this could be amazing. This could be huge. This could be life-changing. This could be all the positive things that could happen. It's like buying a lottery ticket and you start thinking about all the positive things and you forget the fact that you just wasted $10 on a chance that you're probably not going to win. If you win, great. But the negative is you just spent $10 that you could have used somewhere else. But you don't see that until after you don't win. And then you go, I waste all my money. And food is so expensive, but you could have used that $10 to buy any number of vegetables or vitamins or fruits or healthy foods. But instead, you went on a chance because of the super high potential, which very few people win. And then you have the negative with it most people don't think of, is that especially people that buy lottery tickets every week, if you're spending $10 every week, it's $520 a year. It's a lot of groceries. It's a lot of groceries. So it's about making the decisions. And if you're going to make that decision and be okay with it and say, you know what, I'm just going to go all in on this lottery ticket, and I know that I'm spending money that I probably don't have or could use elsewhere, and all that kind of stuff, and you're not going to be upset about it, hey, that's fine. That's great. But if you're doing it because it's a habit, and then you're going to complain about not being able to buy something or not being able to have food, that's when it's a problem. That's when it's a problem. And that's when it's something that you're not in control anymore. So make your decisions based on being in control, knowing the positives and knowing the negatives.
Thanks for checking out the All in Health and Wellness Confidence Through Health podcast. Our goal is to use health as a conduit to help you reach your goals in life.
A little lighter than me. I'm about to black out. The grip is getting tighter on me. I think I like it deep inside. I feel the fire in me. She like the milky, see me creaming to the coffee to me. She got soul in the sway.